Welcome back to our series of extending Microsoft Copilot. In previous videos, we have created custom connectors and MCP server within Power Platform that give us the extensibility for Copilot Studio. Next, we're going to try a Copilot Connector. It used to be called Microsoft Graph Connector. It has been renamed to Microsoft Copilot Connector just to align with all the 365 branding and their new 365 Agent Toolkit, which is the method we're going to use to create our Copilot today. So which one should I choose? Microsoft has published this very detailed side-by-side comparison article. But for a quick reference, just remember, if you need a real-time knowledge, use the Power Platform Connector. With the Power Platform Connector, all actions happen with live API calls. There is no data movement. On the other hand, using Copilot Connector or the Graph Connector, the data will be copied over, replicated to Microsoft Graph on a schedule. So when your LLM is grounded to this as a knowledge source via the Copilot connectors, the data is not up to date. Just remember that, and let's see how we can implement it. We will be using Microsoft 365 Agent Toolkit inside VS Code. Now, this used to be called Teams Toolkit. Now, everything just being rebranded to align with the 365 Agent. This is a middle ground between the local solution like Power Platform and a pro-code solution like Azure AI Foundry. It's mainly used to create agents, but you can also use it to create Copilot connectors, such as stated here, Microsoft 365 Copilot Extensibility. Here is the prerequisite. Make sure you have installed the 365 Agent Toolkit and Azure Function. You can do that from the marketplace with the extension. Make sure you installed Node.js 18, 20, 22. They are all okay. And most importantly, you need to have at least one Microsoft 365 Copilot license. And also you need to have the search administrator in 365 Admin Center because you need to add knowledge source under the search. And this is a full guide from Microsoft how to create your first Copilot connectors using VS Code with the M365 Agent Toolkit. But we're going to do it with agents without we actually doing all these. So let's switch gear to VS Code. Oh, one more thing. If you do follow through this Microsoft guide manually, this is a custom connector that connects to one of their GitHub repository. And what this connector will give it to you is the GitHub issues. So this is the actions they use. And we will follow the same steps. The process will be the same. I'm just not going to do it manually. I'm going to try to use the agent mode within the VS Code to do it. And the example we're going to use is following through the previously what we did with FMP Financial on the custom connector and MCP server. Differently, we're going to make it to a Copilot connector now. So they will be available in the Microsoft Copilot instead of a Copilot Studio agent. And also we need to make sure the API endpoints are suitable for this kind of Copilot connector scenario. As we said at the beginning of the video, it is not suitable for real-time data. So the API endpoint in our configurations for FMP need to have data that does not rely on the live data, such as yesterday's closing price is fine, for example. A company statement will be fine. Company news, for example, will be delayed because if it's announced in the morning and your connector ran last night, you will not get that. So we need to review which API endpoints need to be included into our Copilot connectors. In VS Code, I have created a blank folder Now let's go to the M365 Agent Toolkit. Let's create a new app. Bring up the menu. Now we're gonna select Copilot Connector. Enter a name. It's called FMP Copilot Connector Cloud. Enter. Connection ID. Connection ID is just another name, but it needs to be unique. Since we haven't created any, we can just use that FMP Copilot Connector Cloud. We can use this folder. We should use this folder, the folder we just used. So let's browse that one, select this folder. You can see everything has been scaffolded. And now we just need to start build it. I have attached the Swagger file from our previous video that we used to create a custom connector and MCP server. So here's my prompt. I'm creating a Copilot connector. Please use the same API endpoints from the JSON file, which I used to create MCP server for Copilot. Limit the stock to 5 symbols and 5 days of data for crawling. Now this is very important because services like FMP or Bloomberg or London Stock Exchange, obviously it has massive data and you do not want bring everything over. Services like those are actually not a perfect use case for a Copilot connector, like I said before at the beginning of the video, but just for demo purpose. So we're gonna limit the data to 5 stocks and 5 days of the data, and only the 8 API endpoints that's defined in the Swagger file. I'm using the free FMP API, which limits to 250 calls per day, and I also post it to reference for a Microsoft link and also a FMP API doc. Let's change this to planning. I will leave on the Sonnet 4.6 and send the prompt. Now I have a full picture of the code base. Let me ask one clarifying question. So it's either gonna do 1 item per stock symbol, each symbol equal to 1 item plus the quote profile 5-day price summary and a simple 15 API calls. The other one is 1 item per symbol per trading day, so that will end up with more. Okay, I think I'll stick with number 1. Let it finish its crawl. Now it has completed the first round of analysis. Let's have a look. It read through our code base, which is these folders, and it understands replace GitHub issues data source with FMP Financial API. So it understands this scaffolded folder structure was based on the GitHub issues example that Microsoft provided. Each of the 5 configured symbols becomes 1 external item and it will be populated by 3 API calls. Okay, so these are the steps, and if we're happy with that, we can just ask it to go ahead, implement it, and then we'll start crawling. It's finished, so now it's asking me to provide my FMP API keys in the environment.local. So if we click that, and we'll come to here and paste our key. Once we've done that, we just need to run F5, which is same as the instruction to start the crawling. So I have added my API key, and I switched to a different model from GPT 5.3 to Cloud Sonnet 4.6. Check the connector one more time before the crawling, and then create a short summary. I have run out of API calls today, so we're not going to do crawling today, but let's make sure this connector is built correctly, and we'll read the summaries. Cloud has completed its final review. So this is the results. It shows me all the file that has changed, the API call budget. And the next step is press F5 to run the task to start crawling, which matches the instruction from the Microsoft document. Then we'll register schema. which we will do that with 365 and run full crawl. And I actually forgot to tell the model to build it using Python. I didn't specify that, so it actually built it as TypeScript. F5, start executing, creating Microsoft environment. Okay, the first error we've got. Here is some error I don't understand. Failed to execute lifecycle provision because they are unresolved placeholder. Okay. And also, if we're looking at our env.local, there's a Microsoft Online login. So maybe try to deploy to our cloud already. So let's ask the agent to explain. So we'll refer to the terminal output, terminal. No, it should be at terminal. Explain. I have hit F5 to run with the terminal errors. But also I need to make sure I'm not running to the cloud. I just want a local connector test. Just FYI, I only need to run the connector locally to make sure it works with the crawling without deploying it to the cloud. To run your connector locally without deploying to the cloud, you typically use npm start or that. Right. If I haven't got terminal error, could you share the output? It did not read my terminal error. Let's just copy everything. Here is the error. So it checked out in the 365 Agent YAML file, replace the connector repos with our symbol. So maybe it looks like it was still reading the template files. That's why it didn't work. And also now brought out the API keys in it. So press F5 again. Let's see whether it will work this time. And if there's more error, we can just show it. Okay, so it's executing. 3 out of 3 actions has been executed successfully. And what's this? The deploy connection function is in error. Okay, let's ask again. There's a new errors here. The cron expression has 0 in the month field, which is invalid. So that looks like something to do with the schema mapping. It found 2 bugs in the expression to figure out the date, the month and day. Well, looks like it's fixed. So let's just try running F5 again. So function F5. We'll see it's running again. 3 out of the 3 actions has executed successfully. Okay, nothing read yet. We'll see. Error checking the connection. Connection is not ready yet. Maybe there's some problem with the APIs, but the connector looks good. Succeeded. And there's no further errors. Let's add the terminal again. Seems like it's running. Monitor the terminal and report back if there is error. So the connector looks like it's running, but we keep getting this connection not ready yet error. And I copied these logs into the agent ask. So it seems like it is running, but it needs to finish before actual crawl can do anything. So it's like waiting. And it asked me to check the terminal for admin consent. Then I remember if we go back to our instructions, we kind of like in the step 7 or 8. On this GitHub issue connector, number 7, you press F5 to run the connector locally. And then you're going to follow the link to the terminal. So it looks like this is at the app registration stage. Now, if we go back to our admin, looks like the connector is there, but it's not fully ready yet. Remember, there was nothing here. So let's go back to this link to consent. We'll click on that. The link actually didn't work. We'll do that manually. So let's go to app registration. So I've refreshed this window already. You can see what was the last created. This one is just created. So let's go open that. And if we go to the API permissions, you can see the status is not granted. Grant admin consent for the company. When done, refresh. Okay, now let's go back. I have granted admin consent, kill the session, and rerun. Now there's some new error, says port 770 is not available. So it seems like simple fix just need to switch the port for it to run locally. Or maybe it's because of previous session. Port is clear, press F5 now. Okay, maybe we did it too quick. So let's do that again. So we want to just close these. Can we do F5 now? Function F5. And it is doing it. And hopefully we get no more errors. So our coding agent says, good news. It's just a propagation delay. Ask us to wait. Now when I look into our terminal, I did see something. It says creating schema for connections. This should take under 10 minutes. Connection not ready yet. So I think this is gonna just keep probing, and if it's not ready, it will just give us this yellow font. Message says not ready yet, but let's wait for 10 minutes and see whether we can get this created, and we should be able to visibly see in M365 admin portal. Based on the instruction on step number 9, the app creates a connection. Registering schema might take up to 10 minutes. And you should be able to see that under search intelligence. Now this area does not exist anymore because this is old documentation. Now everything is under the Copilot connectors. If we go back to, let's give it a refresh. It's already there, you see. Right now it says as staging. And 3 minutes ago, last sync. Right, this we know, even though the data has been replicated, it won't appear in the Copilot straight away. So that's why this is not a great use case if you want up-to-date live data for this type of implementations. It's good for your database, for example, your HR database or some financial application that have your data in Databricks or the Azure SQL Server. And you can run this daily replication maybe every 6 hours. That's great. Now we'll give it a bit more. Give a couple more minutes, wait for it to complete, and then we'll have a look whether this connector actually has the stuff we need. And we also need to work on the schema. The terminal is still showing the full crawl in progress. So let's give it a bit more time, and then we can have a look at the errors. And mostly will be schema related. It has been troubleshooting and iterating ourselves, and look, this time says found 0 errors, waiting for file change. The connector has been deployed and completed its first crawl. So I ask, how do I verify this data has been replicated to the MS graph now? And it replied that it has created some verification scripts in the workspace, and actually it ran it. It checked the connectors, checked the items. Connection state is ready, no graph error. And I followed up with another question. So is there a way we can verify visually from the 365 admin portal? And it just told us to go check it, all these places. All right, so let's have a look. If we go to the admin portal, it keeps saying we should go to search and intelligence. data sources. Now we know that's not there anymore. It's been updated. It used to be under data sources, but now since Microsoft introduced this Copilot menu, everything's under the connector now. We can see the connector has been deployed, called FMP Financial Data. If we click that, we can see there are some items being replicated. There are detailed schema here. We'll have a look at later. Statistics. Now there's no statistics here yet. I know this is quite slow, so I'm not gonna worry about that now. And you can see it's made some suggestion to improve the schema, which is last modified by. I don't think we need to add that. For the type of data we're getting from the FMP Financial, I don't think we need to add that. And from the bottom, you can see the Copilot Visibility. We have turned that on, so you will get the results from FMP via the Copilot chat, as well as the new Copilot search. And the permissions, you can see, is visible to everyone. Before we run the test with Copilot, I want to talk about the schema. I think that's one of the most important stuff about how this Copilot connector will work. Now, I've used the agent pretty much all the way. It has been deployed. This is all Azure DevOps stuff. Underlying the technology is the same because my agent has access to my Azure. It just did it for me. So I won't explain how that's done. But I like to have a look at this schema. Now, schema is important because the response we get from the FMP API endpoints, it returns a JSON file. And then we need to transform that and select the properties that we need and copy to our graph. So as you can see, I've asked the question, explain to me how the schema mapping was done and how do I know you've done it correctly. And he pointed out this schema.json file. And you can see there's some property here, there's symbol, there are company name, exchange, but there are not many, right? So I asked, if I have a look at a API endpoint, for example, the company profile, you get these responses. That's a lot. And you can see there's a price, there's a symbol here, there's a price somewhere here, price. But there's a lot more that's not here. For example, like industries or the volumes. So if we have a look at the website, for example, this is a single API endpoints, company profile data API that's been wrapped inside our connector. And we have like around 7, 8 of those. When you query a company profile, these are the responses coming back from the FMP Financial Services. And every line item here, it is a property. Now, when we create a Copilot connector, we want to bring this data from this results into our graph. These are the properties that's available and we can copy over to Graph Connector. Now, I didn't make any of those schema mapping. It's done by the AI automatically. So I did follow up. As you can see, there's about maybe less than a dozen properties in the schema. And we just had a look at one API endpoint. It had more than a dozen of the properties. And we have 7, 8 of those. So if we want to bring over everything, that's a lot of schema. So I was asking, I need to understand why not all the properties from JSON response are mapped to graph. Is it a choice you made or the limitation by the graph? So the answer is pretty clear. It's not a limitation of our connector or graph. It is a choice it made. So how this connector was created? It is based on the templates that from M365 Agent Toolkit. This scaffolding is being built based on that GitHub issue example that we saw before. And we just use AI to iterate on that and changed or modified it to suit our needs with the FMP connector. And these are the property it decided to use in the connector. So is it necessary to bring all the properties over? We got a pretty clear answer here that it does not recommend to bring everything over. Short answer is no, not all by default. The recommended approach is selective mapping. So basically you want to bring up the stuff that matters, that most likely will provide good answers to your Copilot, but not everything, because as you can see, one API endpoint can contain 10, 20 properties. And we only did 8 of them out of thousands of API endpoints that's available from FMP. So the AI model made a decision to just bring over these. But you need to understand that this is a choice that as a system architect, as a designer, you need to make. What sort of data you want to bring over and feed to your Copilot and ground your response. For now, we're going to just stick with what we have here and just go ahead test the response on the Copilot.